Assalamu alaikum students, I am Dr. Muzammil and I welcome you all in today's class on food toxicants and food standards. So today we'll be talking about the various food toxicants, diseases caused by them and the preventive measures that can be taken. And last but not the least, about the food standards that have been developed to ensure the safety and the quality of food that we consume. Coming to the objectives of today's class, we'll define the various food-borne diseases, we'll classify the food-borne intoxications, we'll talk something about the various food intoxicants and the diseases that are caused by the various food intoxicants, and then lastly about the various food standards. Now coming to the definition of the food-borne diseases, it is defined as a disease either infectious or toxic in nature, which is caused by the agents that enter the body through the ingestion of food. Now coming to the classification of the various food-borne intoxications. Now, food intoxication can occur due to the naturally occurring toxins in some foods, like we have lathyrism, which is caused by beta-oxalyl aminoalanine, or endemic ASCITES caused by pyrrolizidine alkaloids. Now, toxicity can occur because of the toxins produced by various bacteria, like we have botulism or we have staphylococcus poisoning. Now, toxication can occur because of the toxins produced by various fungi as well, like we have AFLATOXINS, we have ERGOT, and then FUSARIUM toxins. Now, poisoning can occur because of various chemicals in the food, like we have heavy metals, which includes mercury, cadmium, and lead. Toxic can occur because of various oils, petroleum derivatives, and solvents, like we have tricresin phosphate or TCP. It can also occur due to various migrant chemicals from the package materials. Poisoning can occur due to asbestos as well as due to pesticide residues like we have DDT and BHC. Now firstly we'll discuss about NEUROLATHYRISM. Now it is a disease which is caused by a toxin called beta-oxalyl aminoalanine. And the source of the toxin are the seeds of pulse called Lathyrus sativus, also called as the kesari dal. It is a paralyzing disease of humans which affects the nervous system and is characterized by gradually developing spastic paralysis of the lower limbs. Now the picture shows the plant of the pulse Lathyrus sativus. Now coming to the problem statement, NEUROLATHYRISM is prevalent in various parts of India and most commonly in Madhya Pradesh, followed by Uttar Pradesh. Then we have Bihar, Orissa, Maharashtra, West Bengal, we have Assam, Gujarat, and Rajasthan. The disease is also prevalent internationally, like we have it in Spain and Algeria. Coming to the pulse, Lathyrus sativus is also named by various local names, like we have Teora dal, Lak dal, or Batra. Now the seeds of the pulse are triangular in shape and grey in color. They are rich in protein and so they are consumed by poor agricultural laborers. Toxicity occurs when a person consumes diet containing more than 30% of this dal for a period of 2 to 6 months. Coming to the toxin, it has been isolated in crystalline form and is water soluble. So, it can be easily removed by soaking the pulse in hot water and then rejecting the water. However, there is a blood-brain barrier to the toxin. Coming to the disease, this NEUROLATHYRISM affects people in the age group of 15 to 45 years and has 5 stages, which includes the latent stage, we have no stick stage, one stick stage, two stick stage, and lastly the crawler stage. In the latent stage, the person is apparently healthy. However, under the conditions of various physical stress, person shows ungainly or a clumsy gait. And on neurological examination, we see some characteristic physical signs, which includes weakness and stiffness of the leg muscles. If the pulse is withdrawn at this stage, there is complete remission. Now in no stick stage, the patient walks with a short, jerky steps but without the aid of the stick. In one stick stage, patient walks with a crossed gait and this tendency to walk on toes. Now, muscular stiffness makes it difficult for a person to maintain the balance, so has to use a stick for walking. Now, symptoms in the two-stick stage are more severe. Due to excessive bending of knees and crossed legs, patient needs at least two crutches for support. Gait is slow and clumsy, and the patient gets tired easily after walking short distances. Lastly, we have the crawler stage. Now, in this stage, the knee joint cannot support the weight of the body. There is atrophy of the thigh and leg muscles, and the patient is reduced to crawling by throwing his weight on the hands. Now, coming to various interventions which can help in preventing letharism, firstly we have vitamin C prophylaxis. Now, it has been seen that the damage can be repaired by daily administration of 500 to 1000 milligrams of ascorbic acid for a week or so. Secondly is banning the crop. The proportion of the dal should never form more than a quarter of the total amount of the cereals and pulses which are eaten per day. Then we have the removal of the toxin, which can be done by the steeping method and by parboiling. Now, the people must be educated about the dangers of consuming this pulse and need for removing the toxin. Then is a genetic approach in which lesser toxic varieties of Lathyrus sativus can be propagated and cultivated, and these varieties can be obtained from the Indian Agricultural Research Institute, New Delhi. And lastly but not the least are the socio-economic changes and the overall development which will help in rooting out letharism. Coming to aflatoxicosis, it is caused by mycotoxins produced by fungus Aspergillus flavus and fungus Aspergillus parasiticus. These fungi infest food grains like groundnut, maize, parboiled rice, etc. under the conditions of improper storage and produce aflatoxins. B1 and G1 are the most potent hepatotoxins and are carcinogenic. Moisture levels of more than 16% and temperatures of 11 to 37 degrees favor the toxin formation. Aflatoxin B1 has been detected in samples of breast milk and also in urine collected from children who are suffering from infantile cirrhosis. Now, aflatoxin poisoning can occur either by direct ingestion of the various food grains or by the indirect means, as shown in the picture. Regarding the control and preventive measures, now this aflatoxicosis can be prevented by proper storage of the food grains after drying. Moisture content should be kept less than 10%. If the food is contaminated, it should not be consumed. And the local population should be educated on the health hazards of consuming contaminated food grains. Now, coming to ergotism. Now, ergot is a field fungus, also called as Claviceps purpura. Food grains like bajra, rye, sorghum, etc. have the tendency to get infested during the flowering stages by the ergot fungus. Now, this fungus grows as a blackish mass and the seeds become black and irregular and are harvested along with the food grains. Now, as can be shown in the picture, that the food grains have been infested with various black masses. Consumption of this ergot-infested grain leads to ergotism. Coming to the symptoms. Now, acute symptoms, although rare, include nausea, repeated vomiting, giddiness, and drowsiness, which can extend to a period of 24 to 48 hours. In chronic cases, there are painful cramps in limbs and peripheral gangrene due to the vasoconstriction of capillaries. So the picture shows the various gangrenous changes. Coming to prevention, what are the different interventions that can be taken to prevent the disease? Firstly, the infested grains can be easily removed by floating them in 20% salt water. They can also be removed by hand picking or air flotation. The upper limit for the ergot alkaloid has been estimated to be 0.05 milligrams per 100 grams of the food grain. Now, this epidemic dropsy is a disease caused by the alkaloid sanguinarine which is present in argemone oil. Now, the sanguinarine interferes with the oxidation of pyruvic acid which accumulates in the blood. The disease affects all the age groups except for the breastfed infants, and the mortality varies from 5 to 50%. Now, here's a picture showing the dropsy. Now, it is a sudden and a non-inflammatory bilateral swelling of the legs associated with diarrhea, dyspnea, cardiac failure. It can even lead to death, although some people may develop glaucoma as well. So we see it leads to pitting edema. Now, what is the source of contamination? Now, this contamination can be either accidental or deliberate. Seeds of Argemone mexicana closely resemble the mustard seeds. The crop of mustard are harvested in March, and the seeds of Argemone also mature at the same time and are likely to be harvested along with the mustard seeds. Now, unscrupulous dealers can mix the Argemone oil with mustard or other oils. Now, this Argemone oil is orange in color and has an acrid odor. This is the picture which shows the flower of the Argemone mexicana. Now, what are the tests for detection of this Argemone oil? Now, we have two tests, nitric acid test and a paper chromatography test. In nitric acid test, nitric acid is added to the mustard oil, and if there's presence of Argemone oil, the color changes to a brown or an orange-red color. Otherwise, it remains unchanged. Now, another test, that's the paper chromatography test, is the most sensitive test, and it can detect Argemone oil up to 0.0001% in all the edible oils and fats. So in picture, we see that if there's Argemone oil present in the mustard oil, there's a color change. Otherwise, the color remains unchanged. Now, how can this be prevented? Now, accidental contamination, it can be prevented at the source by removing the Argemone weeds which are growing among the oilseed crops. And in case of the deliberate contamination, we have to strictly enforce the Prevention of Food Adulteration Act. Now, coming to the endemic ascites, it is caused by pyrazolidine alkaloid. Contamination of the millet, that is Panicum miliare, with the weed seeds of Crotalaria are the cause. Disease affects all the age groups of both the sexes except the infants. And the symptoms include rapidly developing ascites and jaundice, as is shown in the picture. The overall mortality is 40%. Now here we see the Crotalaria seeds that contaminate the millet. And this is the plant, that's the Junjunia plant. The picture shows the Panicum MILIARE seeds. Coming to the Fusarium toxins. Now here the toxic agent are the metabolites produced by the fungus Fusarium incumatum. The fungus contaminates food items like sorghum and rice. Work is in progress at the National Institute of Nutrition, Hyderabad, to identify the toxic agent. Now coming to the food standards. What are these food standards? They are a set of criteria that a food must meet if it is to be suitable for human consumption, and includes the source, composition of the food, appearance of the food, freshness, permissible additives, and a maximum bacterial content. What is the importance of these food standards? It ensures the quality and safety of the various food products. These standards are mandatory for international trade, and also to increase the market share and the international competitiveness of the various food products. These are the logos for the different food standards. First is the Bureau of Indian Standards hallmark logo. Then we have the logo for AGMARK standards, for the ISI standards, and then for the FPO, or the Food Products Organization standards. Now coming to the various food standards, they have been developed for the prevention and control of food adulteration. Now firstly we have the Codex Alimentarius. Codex Alimentarius Commission is a principal organ of Joint Food and Agriculture Organization and the World Health Organization Food Standards Program. It has formulated food standards for the international market, and the standards prepared by the Codex Alimentarius Commission are accepted internationally. Now, PFA standards, or the Prevention of the Food Adulteration Standards, have been laid down under the Prevention of the Food Adulteration Act of 1954 by the Central Committee of Food Standards to obtain a minimum level of quality of foodstuffs. These standards are statutory and there is a legal backing to it. Now, coming to the AGMARK standard, these have been prescribed by the Directorate of Marketing and Inspection of the Government of India. It gives the assurance of the quality of the various foodstuffs. Now, coming to the Indian Standard Institution, these have been prescribed by the Bureau of Indian Standards. The AGMARK and the ISI are not mandatory but purely voluntary. They express the degree of excellence above the PFA standards, and the presence of the ISI mark also gives the consumer an assurance of the good quality of the various food products. Coming to Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, it has been established under the Food Safety and Standards Act of 2006 and has been created for laying down the scientific standards for the articles of food and to regulate their manufacture, their storage, distribution, sale, and import to ensure availability of safe and wholesome food for the human consumption. And the picture shows the logo for the FSSAI. And that is all for today's class. Thank you.